Hello and welcome everyone to this week's edition of Engineer Your Energy. I'm Caroline Milton. I'm the owner of Milton Coaching Collective. We provide burnout prevention and change management services because we believe in a future where your mental and physical well-being matters. I'm joined today in this week's episode by a very special guest. The first time that I've had the honor of having a family member join me in one of these chats. So you can accuse us of nepotism; it is fair. Um, Kate Ryan, we are first cousin once removed. We are some relation, but we have grown up together. We are cousins. We are also sisters. There is no incest. I promise. We are both members of the Chi Omega sorority, so we get to attach that relationship as well. But today, Kate's here with us talking about her new business venture, Roovie Creative, and what led her to leave the corporate world and start her own business. I think it's important to have these conversations, and I hope that you're able to learn something from Kate today, maybe leave a little bit inspired, and just enjoy this conversation. So welcome, Kate.
Thanks, Caroline. Thank you for having me on today. Hello,
Yeah,
everyone.
yeah, I was so thrilled when you made your announcement about starting Roovie Creative, just because it's such a remarkable thing. It's such a brave thing for any person to do, to launch out on their own and to start a business from the ground up. So I commend you significantly on that achievement alone.
Thanks so much. So I'm going to give a little recap of what Roovie is for all of you who don't know. So Roovie Creative is a mission-driven, full-service marketing and advertising agency that focuses on transforming and building brands through innovation and creativity. Our main service offerings are digital advertising, public relations, branding, design, logo creation, and strategic marketing.
Now, you have a lot of experience in this field before starting your business. So tell us a little bit about where you were, college and then post-college, and what your work entailed in that early part of your career.
Yeah, so I graduated from Baylor University in 2016, and then I started working at a local quasi-governmental nonprofit in spring of 2017, and I was there for 4.5 years. I learned so much, and I'm thankful for my experience there. Did a lot of focus in the social media realm, and then for individuals that are on this that have been in the nonprofit world or worked for local government, you know that every team is small but mighty. And so everybody does a little bit of everything. And that's exactly what it was like there. So I got to get my feet wet in the public relations world, build brands from start to finish as we stood up a bunch of different programs. When I first started at Employee or at my previous employer, there was a team of 25 individuals, and there were two of us on the communications and marketing, and we had 3 programs that we were managing. Fast forward 4.5 years, there was 65 staff members, 8 programs, and still 2 people on the marketing and communications team.
Wow.
So when you nearly triple the amount of staff that you have or double the amount of staff, almost triple the amount of programs, all of the work comes in. And I was told about 2 years in, when it was, same growth period. So it was about 40 individuals and 5 programs at the time, I believe. I was told by the other person on my team that you have to choose whether you want your work to be done well or you want it to be done quickly. Mm-hmm. And I don't believe that you should ever put your name on something that you're not proud of. So instead of picking and choosing if it would be done well or quickly, I decided to work 60 plus hour weeks to make sure both were possible. I like to say that I take a lot of pride in my work. And so anything that I'm sending out to the ether saying, this is by Kate Ryan, I want to be confident that it's going to be well received and that it is well done. And I've put all of my effort into it that I can. So
Yeah,
go
you
ahead.
bring up a good point that we've kind of lost scope of what productivity is, right? That we're only focusing on productivity in terms of the output that we generate, and we're losing sight that productivity is a measure of the input versus the output, right? And when we have to increase our input, our hours worked in your case, in order to just even meet the output, not exceed the output, but meet the output, then that's where we're really treading into dangerous territory when it comes to just overwork, overwhelm, exceeding job pressure and work demands. That's really unsustainable, right? And believe me, I'm such a geek for optimization. I love continuous improvement. I think looking at how we can work better is so interesting. But
Mhm.
at the end of the day, we have to recognize that these are humans, right? That we have human limitations, and that we can't just continue to pile and pile and pile the work and extend the hours in an effort to try to produce more output. That it's truly unsustainable, as evidenced by the
Mhm.
next part of your journey, which is kind of that catalyst moment where you decided, okay, it's time to do something different. So, talk to us a little bit about where you came to be, where you were willing to leave behind the security, right, of working for another organization, and try something different.
So in spring of 2021, I started poking around and applying for different jobs. I was looking for some sort of role that would be fulfilling and where I would feel supported by my colleagues and really be immersed in the culture and be part of a culture that elevated voices and really prioritized the team more than just the business. And I got several interviews, got offers, but I just knew that that was something that was really important to me to make sure was part of my next steps. Because, I mean, like you said, Caroline, what you do with your time and your job is so valuable. It completely impacts the rest of your life. Because, I mean, most people, either you're working, thinking about work, talking
Mhm.
about work, and you're doing that for the majority of your waking hours. So if you're not like loving and thriving with what you're doing, I mean, it's obviously going to trickle over into the rest of your life. So,
Yeah.
oh, go ahead.
Oh, I'm just nodding in total agreement with you.
Perfect. Good. And so after dipping and dabbling, trying to figure out where would be a good fit, I was talking with my husband and he was like, "You have been running this thing for the past 3 years. Like, you are a badass. You can do it. Try it." And I'm like, "All right, here we go." So I just really leaped. And I had a friend that connected me to another organization that was looking for somebody to help with their marketing. And they needed someone to work for 10 hours a week. And I said, "Well, I can't do my 60-hour a week job and my 10-hour a week contract position. So it's time." And I have been happier now than I've been in years.
Mm.
Just getting to pick and choose who I work with and what I spend my time on, and really investing in myself and investing in which clients I end up working alongside.
Yeah, that's so great, and congratulations. One
Yeah.
thing, I think I experienced in that transition was, oh, I've run this department, right? I have been responsible for leading a small business unit, or decent sized business unit, wasn't
Mhm.
overly small. And thinking that that meant I had all the skills that were needed in order to run a business by myself. And then making that leap and realizing that's not the case, that there is so much that goes into business, that it is different than management or leadership, and that it requires you to really stretch and grow and be willing to get uncomfortable. So, what have been some of your like big learning moments in starting your own business up until now?
Oh, geez. I mean, taxes.
Yep.
Like everything with that, just basic how to. I have just Googled what does this random business term mean that I didn't learn as a communications major in college. Um, so kind of just learning the baseline of everything, but also figuring out how to separate your time.
Yeah.
Because when you're doing what we do, you don't get paid if you're not working for someone, right? But
Right.
there's still so much that has to go on in order for your company to run successfully, and so much outreach that needs to incur as well. So I think my biggest thing has been trying to figure out and juggle time management while
Mhm.
also prioritizing. The reason that I decided to do all of this was to look out for myself and make sure that I was prioritizing my quality of life and my mental and emotional health. And so I have one day a week, every Tuesday, I pull myself together and I take the first half of the day just to journal and regroup and just put a smile on my face. And then second half of the day, crank out emails and
Mhm.
schedule out my week and just roll with it from there.
Yeah, I think that that space is important, right? Because it's easy to just thrust yourself right into the midst of doing, doing, doing. But when we're past that capacity, we actually start decreasing in what we can do, right? The parts of our brain that get overextended start to cry out for relief, and so our
Mhm.
quality of work can go down. And uh, going back to what you said earlier in the conversation, you want to be proud of everything that you put your name on, and that's a really admirable trait, right? To want to take to be absolutely convinced by every piece of work that you do, right? To be proud of everything that you do, that you can't just overextend yourself in order to perform at your highest level. And you can't just continue to say yes, 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 yes. You have to practice holding boundaries. You have to be intentional about what it is that you say yes to, and striking some sort of balance and allowing yourself time to rest is this ancient practice that we now think is revolutionary, right? And like, what? You set aside time at the beginning of your work week to just set up your work week? Isn't that what Sundays are for? No, no. We have to create those boundaries in order to really ensure that we are fulfilled by our work, because there are plenty of people who are not passionate about their jobs, and that's okay. Like, you do not have to be passionate about your jobs, but you probably have boundaries around your job, right? Like, you might be able to leave your job and know that no one is going to call you or text you or email you until you step back foot into the office the next day. And so there is a boundary there, versus a business like ours where you're checking your email throughout the day. You do that before bed, right? How do you hold healthy boundaries and not let the work creep? So, how do you ensure, aside from those beginning parts of the day, Monday, Tuesday, how do you ensure that you don't let your work creep? What are some of the ways that you found to be successful there?
So I would say probably the best way to be successful would be to be really honest with yourself, and know your limitations. I know for me personally, I work best between the hours of 7 a.m. and 3 p.m. After 3, I'm going to drag a little bit, and that is what it is. So I try to schedule my meetings for the later half of the day because I know that I can buckle down on all of the work that I really need to crank out in the morning. And then the later part of my day, when I'm typically less intentional or less successful, I
Mhm.
guess, I'm still able to fill that with things that are valuable to other people. When it comes to checking email before bed or anything like that, I mean, yes, definitely guilty there. Um, it also, I mean, I think that I've done something I've been trying to do was be a lot more intentional with the other relationships in my life.
Mhm.
And so spending time with my husband, taking my dogs on a walk in the morning, getting outside, scheduling workout classes. So I have to go. I have to take a break during that time where I literally cannot do work.
Yeah.
There's no other place that I can physically be or anything else I can be doing at that in that break. So those are a few things that I've really tried to dive into. Only a few months in.
Yeah.
So hopefully I'll continue to learn and grow and figure out other things that work.
So, what would you say today is your relationship to stress as a solopreneur? Early in that startup phase, what's your relationship to stress?
Transparently pretty high.
Hmm.
Just with all sorts of other things going on. But um, even though I'm more stress, I feel like I have more stress. It's good stress now, if that
Hmm.
makes sense. So before it was stress about constantly disappointing my boss or not being enough for the people around me. And now it's more stress like, oh, I need to finish writing this press release so that I can send out these emails and coordinate with people. And so it's transitioned. I mean, the stress is still there.
Sure.
And I think that might just be part of who I am as a person with a little bit of anxiety. Um, but yeah,
So,
figured it out. Stressed about good things now.
I'm going to do a little bit of teaching here because I think that the audience will relate to what you just said, right? That sometimes you make a leap, you make a change, and the amount of stress that you deal with doesn't necessarily go down. It stays the same, or maybe it increases. There are two types of stress. We're generically there are two types of stress, and your example actually outlines these really well. There's acute stress, and then there's chronic stress, right? That fear of disappointing your boss or letting people down around you, that's probably going to manifest as chronic stress because it lingers. It goes on and on and on and never really has an end. And so, unless we're really, really intentional about interrupting that stress cycle, it just continues to stew. Whereas now your stressors, the number of things that cause you stress might be higher, but they're shorter, they're more incremental. They have clear deadlines, they have an ending point, which makes the stress cycle different because you get that press release done or you finish that project and then there's that celebration, right? Maybe not a big celebration, but it's done. And your body can take that deep breath and relax, and so then that stress cycle has finished. And so it can be kind of startling to be like, wait, my the things that are causing me stress are actually more numerous now in my life, but I don't feel as desperate or sad or overwhelmed as I
Mhm.
felt before when the number of things that caused me stress were lower. And it's because now you're being really intentional about that stress cycle. And a lot of those things that you referenced as doing on a daily or weekly basis are ways that we close our stress cycle. Getting into a workout class, going for a walk with your dogs, affection with your partner, those are all ways that we naturally seek and release dopamine and serotonin, which close that stress cycle. So it makes so much sense that you find your relationship to stress to be maybe heightened at this point, but ultimately more manageable.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I don't think you could have explained it any better.
Okay, so I want to know a little bit about like what Ruby will grow to become for you. So you're wanting to transform and present authenticity for your brands,
Mhm.
what is it that you're hoping that this business, this brand of yours, becomes as it continues to grow?
Yeah. So, from a more tactile perspective, I want to grow my team, hopefully by 2 people in the next year, and start obtaining larger clients. From a personal perspective, I want to make sure that we always are focusing on the principles and the mission that I outlined that were the whole purpose of me wanting to do this in the first place. So, I'll just run through them really quick. So, our first one is to set ambitious goals and make an impact. So, try hard, aim for the stars. If you miss, fail fast. Carry yourself with humility, confidence, and gratitude, because it can be a slippery slope in
Mhm.
marketing and comms. You could have one day where you totally crush it and a project is awesome, and then another day where the person next to you just rocked their project and rocked their world and you did not.
Mhm.
So there are the ebbs and flows. Hustle and work smarter. Just that's pretty self-explanatory. Have perspective, embrace the ups and downs of work and life. Having perspective is something that I need to remind myself of daily, and not letting one small thing that either happened in my personal life or in my professional life get me down and negatively influence the rest of my day or the rest of my week or month, depending on what it is. And then elevating voices and valuing every idea and creating a culture of belonging. That was something that I really missed in some of the other organizations that I was looking for when I was applying for jobs and in my previous employer. So, just wanting to be very intentional about really caring for the people around me and making sure that everybody has a voice and no ideas are bad ideas.
I love that. And that culture of belonging is so important in today's workforce, and especially
Mhm.
with Gen Z and some of our early professionals who are entering into the workforce. They're really looking for that inclusion, that diversity, that belonging piece. As an entrepreneur who has started and shaped her business around respecting your own mental health, how do you see that within the context of a team? So once you're leading other people, really ensuring that mental health is part of the conversation, because some people might hear those things that you just said,
Mhm.
hustle, always, fail fast, things like that, and feel like that's going to be a grind culture. But it
Mhm.
doesn't necessarily have to be a grind culture. So, how do you perceive mental health playing a role in how you grow your teams?
I think the most important thing is going to be transparency and communication. And that's on both sides. Like if I'm off, I want people to call me on it. I want to know that if I have said something or done something that offended a member of my team, I want them to have the freedom and autonomy to say, "Hey, you did X, Y, and Z, and I didn't appreciate it." And I laid these out because I want to be held to these standards.
Mm.
And so it's not just an expectation that I want to have of the people that work with me. It's something that I want to have for myself. Um, and yes, it's easy, especially in a small business, a startup, to really trigger that grind culture. And being in the marketing comms world, especially, there are a lot of quick turnarounds, a lot of deadlines. Um, so just always, I mean, being honest with yourself and being honest with the people around you about what you need or what you don't need, and when
Yeah.
you've hit your capacity. And that's okay to say.
Well, that's great. I really enjoyed chatting with you today, Kate. We've talked about things that we haven't even talked about before in all of our previous conversations. I sincerely appreciate your insights and your story and just your bravery and saying, I think I can do this in my own way. And so, with that, I'd love it if you could share with the audience the best way to get in touch with you if they're interested in learning more about Roovie Creative.
Perfect. So my website is rooviecreative.com. Caroline just popped it up on the screen. So feel free to go there. You can learn more about what we do and check out some of the work that we've done in the past. And then on the contact page, just reach out. I'm pretty quick at responding. And so feel free to call the number there or shoot. I think I have my email listed or just fill out a form. Yeah. I right now am something that I am really passionate about is working with startups. So if that's you, or if you have a small business, or if you just love what you're doing, I'd love to work with you. There's just so much value and so much life in working with other people that are excited and passionate about what you're doing because it's infectious. And then it makes it more fun for me to do my job, and I can easily get on board with you.
And I can speak from experience, having someone who actually knows what they're doing in marketing is such a relief when you're someone who has no concept at all about good marketing, good communications within your business. So definitely a valuable asset to any team. Thanks for joining us this week for this week's episode of Engineer Your Energy. We're just coming back from a longer vacation, so we'll be back in the flow of things with episodes coming to you every Thursday at noon Central Standard Time. So if you haven't already, go ahead and click like or subscribe, depending on where you're watching from, so you can make sure to stay abreast of every time we go live, every topic that we talk about that relates to increasing your energy levels so that you can be your most productive self and still seek that fulfillment and enjoyment out of life that you so desperately want. Again, I'm Caroline Milton of Milton Coaching Collective. Thank you for being here, and we will see you next week.